an original MCM production.
Hello, I am Michelle Bryant, and I am your host for MATA Community Media's 2016 election interview. Today we have with us a candidate for the 1st Aldermanic District, Vince Toney. Hi, Vince, how are you today?
Pretty good, and yourself?
Good, good. Thank you for joining us and taking a moment to jump off the campaign trail. Have you lost any weight yet?
No, I've been working more than campaigning so far.
Really?
Yeah,
That was always one of the signs we could say. You could tell who was doing really good because they were losing tons of weight out doing those doors, but you were trying to hold a full-time job down while you campaign?
I am holding down a full-time job.
Whoa, my goodness. Well, this is an excellent opportunity for folks to get to know about you. As we know, there are a number of contested races for the Common Council Aldermanic positions this election cycle, and many people may not be familiar with you or at least want to know more about you. So we are so glad that you could join us today. So why don't we just start right off the top with you telling folks a little bit about who is Vince Toney?
Well, Vince Toney, I grew up in Milwaukee, walked to 12th Street School, walked to Robert Fulton, and walked to North Division. I've spent 4 years in the military, traveled, went to boot camp in San Diego. First duty station was Diego Garcia. It's an island in the Indian Ocean. And my second duty station was in Guam, where I actually got out of the military and worked for the government, the Air Force for a few years, and then the Navy for a few years.
Okay. And then in terms of what brought you back to Milwaukee and what have you been doing since you've returned?
What brought me back to Milwaukee, I had met someone here when I was on leave.
Okay.
We got married, and the decision was made, your family's here, my family's here, I'll move back to Milwaukee.
Did she make that decision? No, just kidding.
Well, it was collaborative because I think, you know, my family, all of my family's from Milwaukee, so it was an easy choice. So I figured if someone got sick, you know, it'd be a couple $1,000, so in order for us not to travel back and forth. But I guess the one thing that I told her, if I did come back to Milwaukee, that I'd have to go back to school because I couldn't make the kind of money in Milwaukee that I made in Guam without an education.
It sounds like very practical responses to the approach you've taken to where you are so far at this point in life. So how do we get here? What has piqued your interest in terms of running for an aldermanic position?
Well, I guess over the years, I thought about it, but I've never really made the decision. And looking at the community and some of the things that are going on, as a matter, I was last minute to I made the decision the Friday before information had to be turned in.
Really?
That I was going to do it. I said, well, if I don't do it now, I have to wait another 4 years. So I decided to just throw my hat in there, see what would happen in terms of.
So this is your first run for political office?
Absolutely. I'm not a politician per se. I am a social worker.
Okay. Is that what you currently do now?
Yeah, I do social work.
Okay.
Yes.
So, all right, you make this leap of faith. You jump into the race. And at this point, what are you seeing are the challenges, the motivating factors? I understand that you are a Block Watch captain.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about why this particular move.
Well, I think, you know, as being a Block Watch captain, unfortunately, most of our members are elderly. We would like to have some younger people be a part of it, but, you know, I think the way I was raised is two things that I was taught, that to respect your elders and don't put your hands on a woman. So in our Block Watch, we take care of them. We make sure that they feel safe and they're comfortable, that they can possibly go outside after dark to maybe go to the store, to their car, something to that nature. That's our goal, is to be able, which is my vision, is for our elderly and children and families to be able to walk the streets unencumbered by danger. So if we can accomplish that, and right now that's not where we are in terms of our community, from the neighbors that I've met in different parts of the district, there's a lot of fear, and the fear is gun violence and drugs. So that's the biggest problem in our community, and that's what needs to be addressed. And education, let's put that out there too.
Oh, as I was going to say, so public safety brings you into the fold.
Yes.
And it's kind of that motivating factor that says now or never.
Exactly.
Before we go into the other areas that would be responsibilities under your purview as an alderperson, help people understand the district, because you've just talked about a lot of elderly folks, but then you've kind of leaned us a little bit towards crime and potential violence in the community or drugs. What is the area? What are the boundaries?
The boundaries in the area, if you, from Green Bay Avenue going, Capitol Drive in Green Bay, going west to 35th, going north to Hampton, then going west to 54th, and going north to Silver Spring, east to Sherman, and from Sherman to approximately Calumet, from Calumet over to Green Bay, and then back down to Green Bay and Capitol Drive.
It's a really oddly carved district.
Yeah, it's.
You got a little bit of everybody in that district.
Yeah.
What's the demographic makeup like? I mean, in terms of employment, unemployment?
I don't know the exact numbers in terms of demographics, but I do know from the northern part of the district, there's more employment. In the middle, there's employment, but in my particular area, there's a lot more unemployment in my particular area, which is Capitol Drive going north to Atkinson Avenue.
Okay.
Yep.
So I had talked about the fact that there are a lot of things that will fall in terms of responsibilities as an alderperson. But before I go to that, let's just take a moment and walk back in terms of public safety.
Okay.
Because, as I thought about it while you were talking, for that to be such a motivating factor, what is it that you were seeing, Vince, that made you say, enough is enough, we've got to change this? What did you see?
Well, I'll give you an example. Our block watch is pretty organized, and we've partnered with DRS. Previous to that, we partnered with Eden Corporation, but they...
And DRS is?
They are a government contractor that's in our neighborhood that employs quite a few people.
Okay.
And Eden Corporation was our partner, but they left the area. But in our block watch, we have put together a welcome pack. Within the welcome pack, we have information about how to get in contact with the police, different demographics of the neighborhood, and neighborhood standards, and things of that nature. And new neighbor comes in, either myself or the neighbor that's living in the area. This is particularly the Garden Homes area.
Okay. They
would take it to that person. And in one instance, I took it to the family and said, hey, Vince Toney, welcome to the neighborhood, and here's our packet, and here's our expectations. And basically, we want them to know that in this neighborhood, somebody's going to call the police on you if something goes wrong. Well, unfortunately, this particular family attracted a lot of negative people in the neighborhood. At some point, we recognized drug dealers, and at another point, it got really bad where people were coming from across the street shooting at their home and hitting the next door neighbor's house as well, who has children. So enough is enough. We, at our block watch meetings, we have the 5th District Police Department. They come to our meetings and they report on safety and crime, so everybody knows what's going on in the area.
Okay.
And we partnered with the Milwaukee Police Department. They actually did a roll call in front of the house that was the problem. And at some point in the near future, the family moved, the landlord got involved, and they moved. So being vigilant and having a relationship with the police department, because there are certain things that we can't do ourselves, and we were very appreciative of that effort. So it was something that was very impressive to us.
So move us beyond the issue of public safety, albeit an extremely critical one, and give us a broader idea of what it is that you would also like to do in your role as alderperson. So whether we're talking economic development, education, jobs, addressing unemployment, what are other things that you think that you would be interested in?
I think that's all inclusive. I think when I look at the community in terms of where we are, I think education is key. And with our school systems now, our children aren't getting a level of education that will put them in the same category with their peers when it comes to jobs and that are being created. And for example, DRS has jobs in our community, and there just happens not to be qualified individuals in our immediate area. So what do we need to do in our community to change the demographics in terms of education? For example, we're living in a technological society. How are we going to educate our children to be able to have those type of jobs in the community? And I look at also with Amazon being put in the community, I thought, well, maybe possibly if that organization could have been brought into the city versus where they are, because we're busing in Kenosha. So they're busing people out there to work, but if you would have had that type of organization in the inner city, you can, I mean, it'd be exponential how many people that would be employed in the city.
That's a huge footprint, though. I passed it. I'm sure you had an opportunity to pass by the Amazon, and I'm not saying that we couldn't have certainly benefited, but that is a huge footprint that company has by terms of just sheer size. And I think there was some study that came out or some document that said that they have over 1 million products at any given time inside that warehouse. So that was a big one. But when you talk about the desire to improve educational outcomes, how do you see the role as alderperson being able to impact that?
I think with the school, collaborating with the school administration, with teachers, and unions or whomever else has involvement with our kids. And I think more importantly, we can't blame the demise of education on necessarily the schools completely, because when I came home from school every night, I had to read a book or I had to do my homework. So we have to put the onus back on the family too. How do we get our families back together where they're connected, mother, father, child, and I grew up in a single family home, so it was just my mother. So what and how do we get those individuals involved in our children's lives where they can understand the dynamics of what they're getting at school or what they may not be getting at school and what needs to be done at home?
I'm going to push to expand the vision, to expand what else it is that you would do. So unemployment, work opportunities, skills training opportunities. What else do you see? Well,
in terms of work, the community has to be in a position to attract new business. So in order to attract new business, I'd have to ask myself, well, in different areas of my district, would I open a business there if I had? So in case, let's say, for example, DRS, they're in the community, and to keep those businesses in our community as well. We've had some neighbors that have some criminal behavior, if you will, and there's been instances where they've actually blocked traffic where some of the employees can't go to and from. So I don't think we can't have that type of situation in our community that could possibly have organizations that are hiring and having livable wage paying jobs possibly leave. So whatever we can do to attract business, and also, you know, when we look at the neighborhood, what do we need to do in the neighborhoods to be able to attract new business and to say, is it clean enough? And find out what businesses are interested in our community and what do they need to happen in order for them to bring those livable wage paying jobs here.
So lifelong resident, so you've seen it all. Well, you know, in between your return, going to the military and then returning, you've had an opportunity to see it all. Companies come and go, construction, development, different aspects of the community have had ebbs and flows in terms of high points and lows. What do you think are some of the really amazing things about Milwaukee, or the positives, if you will, given the things that you said you want to address? What do we have to build on?
I think when I look around with the different organizations, Urban Underground, Running Rebels, and organizations like that that are reaching out into the community to try to make the change and the adjustments in the environment, whereas people become more valuable to the community and they respect the community as well. They know that there's alternatives. So, creating an alternative for kids, because right now there's, you know, it's like at home, who do I compete against and who do kids look up to? So in the community, there might be one of me that's out there picking up paper, but then there's 10 or 15 other guys that are standing on the corner possibly drinking and having drugs and things of that nature. So those organizations are reaching out to our children and getting a positive attitude and getting positive things for them to do so they can focus and concentrate on those things that they need to have in order to be productive in Milwaukee.
Okay, but give me the vision. What does Milwaukee under Alderman Vince Toney's leadership with his colleagues at the Common Council. What does that look like? Give me the vision.
The vision for me is change. I mean, education. I think something has to happen with our school system because the jobs and the resources that are out there requires knowledge, and in order for that to happen, things have to change in our school system. I think that's number one, education. And if children aren't educated, then I think we're going to have another generation of children that are growing up, and they're going to turn to drugs and alcohol and things of those natures. And the other things that have to change is we have to look at mental health, and we have to look at drug addiction, and all of those other things that cause negative behaviors, and what do we need to do as a community to make those changes? What infrastructure needs to be out there to encourage people to not engage in behaviors that doesn't add value to our community?
So at this point, are we getting any of this right?
I think individually, there's a lot of groups out there. I mean, I obviously work a full-time job, but my wife and I, we do a lot of volunteerism. We have neighbors who have kids, and one of the things that we do, my wife may take the girls somewhere, and I take the boys to the golf course and teach them how to play golf, and just different things. We give back, and if we have more people that are giving back to their neighborhoods, and I grew up in a neighborhood, everybody knew everybody, and anybody could tell someone what to do, but it was the right thing to do. So we try to create that atmosphere in our neighborhoods that especially for the children, that they're welcome in the community, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we add value to their lives as well. The parents know that they can come to us when they're having concerns. And for example, this weekend I had two kids that my wife worked with, the kid's mom. The kid calls me and said, come pick me up. So I pick them up and take them to Coffee Makes You Black, which is a Black-owned restaurant. Yeah. And I see other gentlemen in there that has 3 or 4 kids, and we have these young men stand up and introduce themselves, look each other eye in eye and shake hands, and what school do you go to and things of that nature. So there's a lot of good things that are going on in the community. We may not recognize it. And the other gentleman, he had about 4 kids with him, and his goal is for them to understand what their parents are doing every day when they go to a 9-to-5 job. So he's paying out of his pocket, he's paying them $4 an hour for an 8-hour day, and they're going around the neighborhood cleaning up and picking up paper and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that are going on that are adding value, and I think in the long run, some of our kids will have a different path in life.
So once we begin to talk about what you envision and how we can kind of move the ball, now we're down at the Common Council. You have colleagues to work with, philosophy about either the way the Common Council is currently operating, what you'd like to see done differently, your idea on collaboration. Is there a way to work with partnerships, county, city? What do you think about the actual process of governing?
Well, the process, I mean, my undergraduate is in business, and I'm purchasing manager. So one of the things that we have to do, and I did in business, is negotiate. So whatever particulars there are and whatever someone needs, at the end of the day, we talk about those things and we put everything on the table. There's a brainstorming session, and out of that, we look at it. And from my perspective is that I have to look at my constituents and what do they want in their community, and I have to bring that to the table. So, and negotiate their benefits into whatever's going on in the Common Council. So I think my first priority is to my constituents in terms of what their needs are.
So what have they said? You've been out there now. How long have you been in the campaign? You said
since January.
January. Yeah. So about 6 weeks out there now so far, maybe 8 weeks now?
And it hasn't been that long because of my full-time job. So
I
haven't been out there that much, but what I'm hearing is gun violence, drugs, how do we get representation, who do we call? We've called the Alderman's office, and we haven't gotten the type of responses that we've needed. I mean, I've talked to someone in, Island, over in that area, and the young lady said there's a government-owned, city-owned property where the neighbors, there was 30 gunshots, bullets firing in that area, and her car was hit 5 times. So she's worried about crime. In another area, a gentleman says, well, we've got people collaborating over there, and that we know where the drug houses is and things of that nature. So we have to, in the media community, we have to find those pockets and remove them.
So what have you found has been most beneficial? You've talked about some of the community collaborations. You talked about the role that education would play. Is there anything else that we need to look to in terms of either corporate partnerships, different models, studying the way folks are doing things around the country? What else should we have our eye on to try to correct or address some of the issues you've outlined?
I think community partners, I mean, a partnership with businesses, public service, and other entities that can enhance the quality of lives in our neighborhoods. So we've partnered with company DRS in our community, and we understand some of the dynamics of that company, their hiring practices, and what type of positions they're hiring for. So what do we need to do in terms of our community education and to get them to be able to have, this, in order for the company to stay there and to be able to have the type of individuals in our community that can take those jobs and do them, whether it be engineering or computer dynamics or whatever the case might be. And in other areas, we need to make sure the infrastructure is what it needs to be in terms of roads. Right now, I mean, I've put a lot of money into my car because of hitting.
Knew it was coming.
Yeah. So what do we need to do in that capacity? Where do we get the funds from? I mean, I look at what's going on with the Bucks Center. I think $25 million that's being allocated to
the city's portion of those
exactly.
dollars.
So I look at what the position that our city is in right now in terms of the infrastructure, and I don't see any plans to change that, or I don't see any. There's been potholes, the same potholes for 4 or 5 years that keeps getting patched up. So I think that we've got entities like the Bucks. They have some very wealthy people who could probably build 2 arenas, and I could see them funding it completely themselves, and we can take that $25 million and build the infrastructure in Milwaukee.
I don't know. I think you stepped into a hornet's nest on that. There was a lot of debate about whether or not the Bucks ownership should have received community support, and there is tons of examples around the country about these relationships and how folks have kind of fared, whether or not the community got a great return on investment. So, and you don't have to answer, but if you want to, if you had been sitting at that bargaining table, what do you think you may have done, or what would your thoughts have been about that?
My thoughts is how would they be able to fund that arena by themselves?
What about return on investment? There are folks that are saying as a result of this, property tax base goes up. We are able to income taxes. We are collecting income taxes off players. I think the example that they kept citing was LeBron James plays 1 game in Milwaukee, and on his 1 game in Milwaukee, I think we reap $16,000 in personal income taxes. So what do you think about, when people say, okay, we spent this, but we got this, or we will get this in return, and this is projected over 20 years that we have a contract for that arena and the team to be in town. What do you think about that?
I still think that the amount of money that was allocated, and that's coming from taxpayers, probably, and from a negotiations perspective, could have been possibly negotiated down, or what's the return on our investment for the city in terms of infrastructure? How is that money going to benefit us?
Well, I think that will end up being one of the interesting things that you may be looking at day one on April 6th. As they talked about how they structured the package, some of it were road improvements. I don't think that the whole thing would have been the actual $25 million in terms of actual dollars, but infrastructure projects that would have been the city's portion of that. People talked about the relationships that the Bucks were able to enter into with Milwaukee Public Schools and how children would have benefited, and you see somebody like a Jabari Parker inside reading to people, but these are just some of the many issues that will be awaiting you and on your plate if you are successful in your bid. So we got a couple minutes left. I would love to give you an opportunity to talk to our viewers and tell them why, in fact, they should elect Vince Toney as the alderman for the 1st District.
Well, I think I look at myself. I've come a long way. I'm a high school dropout. I was able to join the military, come back to Milwaukee, get a GED, work for a manufacturing company, worked my way up into the office, went to a different company. They paid for my tuition to get my bachelor's degree in business, and now I'm working for child welfare. So I have a range of experience. I'm a community person. I've been in the community for a long time. Most of my life, we advocate for volunteerism. For my neighborhood, being one person, I do as much as I possibly can. We have meetings, block watch meetings once a month, where we take care of our elderly. The children are our goals. We look at the infrastructure, the police department, and other agencies that can enhance the quality of life in our neighborhoods. And that's number one, is how do we enhance the quality of life in our neighborhood, whereas people in the community and outside the community want to live there, want to bring their businesses there, so we can be a viable community and livable wage paying jobs can flourish and people can be able to take care of their families.
Well, Mr. Toney, you have said a mouthful. I will tell you, you have certainly brought it from a grassroots perspective. We have people that come into a desire to run for office for many, many reasons, and yours seems to be the very most basic quality of life, making sure that my neighbors, and particularly it resonated when you talked about the elderly, being able to be safe. So, viewers, you have an opportunity to go out and support Vince Toney for the 1st Aldermanic District on April 5th, Tuesday. I don't care what you do, you cannot complain if you are not a part of the process. We hope to see you all on Tuesday. And on behalf of MATA Community Media, we want to say thank you so much for tuning in. And Mr. Toney, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
An MCM production.